Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome to the Big 12 Insiders. Today, we got a good show. Just going to basically break down what the Big 12 needs to do here in bowl season. Is it still important, or is only the playoff important that Arizona State, that they have a good showing as far as the Big 12 to try to garner a little bit more of national respect, where all that lies. You know, in previous years, and I would say before the transfer portal, you know, you kind of had a measuring stick. It was non-conference, but everybody doesn't play everybody non-conference and tough games and all that stuff. So bowl season seemed to be the big measuring stick. Well, now that the playoff is around, and now that the transfer portal is around, is it still the measuring stick? We'll break all that down for you. But before we do, remember to like, follow, subscribe, and continue to hit the notification bell to let you know when all Big 12 Insiders content comes out. Appreciate all the support that you guys have given us. But let's get into it. So, you look, obviously, college football landscape has changed from, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Things look totally different than what they did. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes have a hard time letting go of what college football used to be. And that's okay. I mean, change, what's the old adage? You know, change is tough, but it's also inevitable. So you got to get used to it. And especially when you don't control the change, what's the use in complaining? That's kind of how I feel. Is I can't control it. I don't have to like it, but I do have to learn to live with it, because just like a lot of you, I'm going to continue watching college football. And regardless of what they make the changes to, I'm still going to watch college football, because once they kick the ball off, all I care about is my team winning. I know I say that all the time, but I just think it's the truth. So with all that in mind, the Big 12 basically, I mean, the Big 12 got disrespected this year in a way that I'm not sure any other conference has been disrespected. And what I mean by that is, we can talk about Boise State, and we can say Boise State's this, and they played a tough game at Oregon at the beginning of the season, and we can say all of that stuff. But basically what the committee said was the Mountain West Conference was better than the Big 12. They said that, because what Boise State did in the Mountain West Conference was more impressive than what Arizona State did in the Big 12. Now, while the committee on one side of their mouth said strength of schedule matters, on the other side, they said, not so much. Or it only matters to certain teams that we want it to matter to. So it's not clear cut across the board. You know, like in March Madness, they just tell you this, and this. But they don't really do that with the college football committee. Matter of fact, they haven't. And so it becomes problematic. And you're like, well, how can we figure this out? How do we know what's what? It is what it is. But yeah, the Big 12 got disrespected. And there's no debate. You can tell me how good Boise State is. Okay. And you could say that Boise State's one of the top 10, 12 teams in the country. I don't believe that, but okay. Look, their record is what their record is. Fine, if that's what you want to believe. But who else is good in that conference? And that's where I have my issues, is because you're trying to convince me that all those other teams in the Mountain West and how Boise ran through that conference is more impressive than what Arizona State did in the Big 12. Stop it. Stop. Having said all of that, we still got to go win football games to get respect. Because, again, the national perception is that the Big 12 stinks. It's not that the Big 12 is not any good. It stinks. That's what the perception is of the Big 12 right now. So how do you change it? You know, how do you go garner some respect? Well, we know one way, and it's the most obvious way. Arizona State, go do some damage in the college football playoff. And that's the most obvious way. But that's putting a lot of pressure on Arizona State to do something that, I don't know, Texas or Clemson isn't going to do this year because they play each other. A lot of the, like Notre Dame or Indiana, not that I think Indiana should be in, but whatever. One of those two, somebody isn't going to be able to do the thing that we're tasking Arizona State to do. We're tasking Arizona State to go win football games to keep the conference of not necessarily afloat, but to get the respect, like it's all on them. Well, like I mentioned, these teams that are playing each other, like Clemson and Texas, somebody's going to lose. And if Clemson loses, does the ACC stink? If Texas loses, does the SEC stink? See, and that's what you won't get. And you can look at the ACC and the Big 12 being on an even playing field. The committee didn't think so. Just look at the rankings. The committee never considered the Big 12 to be on the same playing field as the ACC. Never, ever. And I think as Big 12 fans, you got to start looking at that and understanding that. Is that you just look at those college football rankings, they never had us on the equal playing field. Now, you might say, well, they had more teams in. Okay, we did, but where our highest ranked team was so low for so long, they never considered us a viable conference. They never did. Even though at the beginning of the year, and if you guys remember, I had an interview with the executive, I think it was the executive vice president or executive chairman, and asked him flat out at Big 12 Media Days, will the Big 12 get an equal shot like everybody else? He said yes. That wasn't the case. And we all knew it, and we all saw it. It was not the case. Not even close. Because just like Brett Yormark said, there's no way you can have a Mountain West team ranked higher than a Power 4 conference chain. It's just impossible. Impossible. But they did it. So Arizona State has to hold the mantle. I don't think that's necessarily fair to them. But how else do you get it? Where do you go, Big B? Well, you could say the bowl games. Okay. And like I mentioned at the outset here, bowl games used to be the key measuring stick. Bowl games, it was Big 12 versus SEC, ACC, Big 10, Pac-12, whoever won the most bowl games, that was considered the best conference. And a lot of times it was the SEC. It rotated, but you had bragging rights. Can you do that now? With so many people jumping into, for instance, Arizona, now they're not in a bowl game, but they had 28 transfers so far. 28. If they had qualified for a bowl, now, number one, they probably wouldn't have that many transfers. But let's just, any team you want to name. You got 14, 15, up to 20 transfers, and you're in a bowl game, and that's happening. What do you have left? Seriously, like what's going on? What do you have left to even go play? Heck, we just saw Marshall had to cancel and back out of a bowl game because they weren't going to have enough guys to play. Didn't have enough guys to practice, didn't have enough guys to play. Whatever that circumstances are, we don't need to get into that. But the guys transferred. They opted out of the game. So I'm not sure you can measure it by that anymore. Because there's the roster's like sometimes you'll be playing a team that's playing their third quarterback because the other two guys, the starter either transferred or he opted out. The backup transferred because he wasn't playing. And now you got the third string freshman who hadn't taken a snap all year. He's starting in your bowl game. Well, is that a good way or a good representation of your team? And much less your conference. I don't think that it is. It's just, I know it's a weird time, but I don't think bowl season is the way to get the respect that the Big 12 needs to garner. I don't think that bowl season is it anymore. It can't be it. Physically, it just can't be. You got recruiting, trying to get into the playoff, bowl season, transfer portal, all in December. And just in that order, getting ready for a bowl game is last on your list, unless you happen to be in the playoff. But getting for a bowl game, if you're not in the playoff, that is way down the list on the priorities of the football program. Way down the list. I mentioned it before. As a coach, you got to say, what are we trying to do? It's, okay, look, transfer portal's here. We got to get guys. We know guys are leaving. We got to go improve our football team for next year. First and foremost. Oh, yeah, signing day. Again, we got to get the best football players in here. We got to keep recruiting. We need these guys signed. We got to get them in here. Oh, yeah, we got a bowl game coming up. Let's wait a couple of weeks, man. Transfer portal is going to open up. We need to ride that thing out. We'll prepare for that football game, when we can prepare for it. We'll game plan a little bit, but it's just an exhibition. We'll go game plan. We'll put a decent showing out there. Oh, by the way, who's going to play in the game? Oh, our quarterback's gone. Our wide receiver, our running back, our two starting tackles, right and left tackles are gone. Yeah, our two defensive ends left. Our starting safety left. It's those type of problems. So I don't think that you can measure conference superiority by bowl games anymore. You used to be able to do that. And I was a huge proponent of it too. Huge proponent of it. Because I knew during the regular season, teams didn't necessarily want to challenge other teams because there was no college football playoff. And if you lost, you were out. That's the thing. If you lost one game, you were out. If you lost two, you had no shot. And that was the difference. Then they came in with the 4-team playoff. And then, yeah, if you lost the game, you weren't necessarily out. But the margin for error was so razor thin. And teams just weren't going to challenge in the preseason, especially SEC teams. Hey, man, we're in the SEC. We play SEC teams. That's all we're going to worry about. Okay. A different conversation for a different day, whether that's right or wrong. But so I didn't think that was always the best measuring stick was non-conference games. Heck, I went to school. We didn't play anybody in the non-conference ever. It was frustrating for us because we wanted to go challenge ourselves, but we didn't get to set the schedule. So it is what it is. And teams want to have the best record possible to try to win a national championship. So you play your conference games. I get all of that. So I always thought that bowl season was the way to measure that up because you played against each other. Guys played. I mean, there weren't any opt-outs. That was unheard of. Transfer portal wasn't around. And now that it is, again, I'm not against either one of those things. I take that back. If you opt out and you're getting NIL money, I don't think you should get it. I think you got to give some of the money back. You sign up for every single game that you're healthy enough to play in. Period. End of story. But we talked about that yesterday. So that's my feeling on that. But as far as transfer portal, you know me, I'm all in. I'm all in on NIL. I'm all in on transfer portal. I am 100% in. I love it. I absolutely love it. But as far as the measuring stick, yeah, I just don't think you can do it with bowl games anymore. There's not enough emphasis. The importance isn't there. And I'll be honest, I love that the college football playoff, that the playoffs are happening on New Year's Day and all that good stuff. Because for me, growing up, heck, into my 40s, I enjoyed waking up on New Year's Eve and knowing, you know what, I'm not going anywhere today, first of all, because I had a good time the night before. But I'm not going anywhere because college football is going to be on all day long. Literally from 11 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, college football was going to be on, and they were going to be really good football games and a whole bunch of them. So I love that we kept that spirit and that aspect of it, that's still going to be around. I'm excited for that. But yeah, man. And unfortunately, the bowl games have lost its luster. I told you all before, we talked about this last week. I fought it as much as I could about bowl games being important. And I still think they are to an extent, but just not like they used to be. Not like they used to be. Now, I'm never going to be the person that bowl games are useless. They're not useless. But as far as being super important or even that important or relevant, not necessarily anymore. They serve a purpose. Kids can go have a good time playing. Again, you're a senior. You're not going to the National Football League. Your last opportunity to play college football. You can't tell me that's not special. Of course it is. Of course it is. So that's the only part that bothers me when people say that bowl games are irrelevant. They're not. They're not, especially to that kid, you know. And the reason I think that it is because I was one of those kids. And you can call me biased if you want, fine. But I was one of those. Now, I didn't know at the time I wasn't going to go play in the National Football League. But when the opportunity knocked, I wasn't good enough. So that was my last game. I didn't know it. But if you're telling me that last game was insignificant that I played, no. And if you go ask any senior who doesn't get the opportunity to go play at the next level, you're telling me that bowl game's insignificant? Come on. And if you are, again, you're the person who didn't never get the opportunity to participate in one. I will say that again and stand on it. But I think the Big 12's got to the bowl game's not it. It's unfair that Arizona State's got to hold that mantle this year for the conference, but that's just the way that it works sometimes. These bowl games and how you play and who you play against, you can't get that conference superiority anymore when, I don't know, a quarter of your roster may not even be participating in the game. You can't get the same kind of conference superiority. It looks nice on TV, but until you have a team in these non-college football playoff games that has full rosters playing with each other, heck, we saw it last year. Florida State, they got so mad that they got left out. Over half the roster, we're just not going to play. Wow. Okay. That's how insignificant it became, which was an embarrassment, and then it steamrolled into the next season. You saw what happened. But Arizona State, I'm sorry, Sun Devil fans, it's up to you this year. It's up to you. Hopefully it's not like this every year, but we need you this year. We need you. And to be quite honest and frank with you guys, I think Arizona State wins their first game. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I just think they're going to be just as physical as anybody else. I think they win their first game. I flat out do. Now, after that, who knows? Who knows what the matchup's going to be? But looking at Texas and looking at Clemson, I think Arizona State can win that game. I absolutely do. And especially if it's Clemson. And I think Clemson's got a shot to beat Texas. But we'll see. Texas is really good. But that's all I got for you guys today, man. I appreciate you guys. Again, as always, thank you for all the support. Continue to subscribe, man. Continue to subscribe. Send it to your buddies. Let us know. Let them know, hey, this crazy big black dude, Brien Hanley, he talks a lot of stuff on the Big 12 Network. He's funny. We don't agree with all the stuff that he says, but he's a good guy. Let him know, man. Have him come on over, and hopefully they subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.